Everybody, welcome to another episode of the Fair Chase podcast. Before we start this episode, we're going to again take a little time to thank a little bit of the people who help make this show possible.
First up is 2O Gear. It's a new brand that we just started partnering with. They make awesome high-end technical hunting clothes, camo. And so they're based in Michigan, and new company. We've tested them for months. I tested them in the whitetail season last year.
Great merino base layers.
Yep, great
awesome
merino
shells.
base.
Awesome new pattern.
A great system for going out west, but we'll use it a ton in the whitetail woods too. So really excited to work with them. 2ogear.com. Go check them out. Next up is Worldwide Trophy Adventures. It's an awesome, basically, connection to outfitters all over the world. So as a lot of people know, good hunting ground is really hard to come by. And oftentimes the best way to ensure that you're going to get in a good spot, or maybe you need to legally have a guide, is to go through an outfitter.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as you might know if you've heard us before, we've had good experiences and bad experiences with outfitters. Which means, in order to ensure you're going to have a good experience, you have to do a ton of research, you have to talk to people, it's just a lot of messing around. Worldwide Trophy Adventures, or WTA, does a lot of this work for you at no charge. So by booking your trip through WTA, you can rest assured that you'll be in a good location with a reputable outfitter that they've certified and endorsed. If you're looking to book a trip of a lifetime like I am, just headed to a moose hunt here through WTA, you're going to want to check them out. Go give them a call. Actually, I have the number right here. It's 1-800-346-8747, or check out their website at worldwidetrophyadventures.com.
All right, so we love Trophy Line. They offer more than just saddles. Believe it or not, they have their own climbing sticks. They've got platforms. They've got a ton of extra
packs.
gear. They've got packs. They've got everything.
Knee pads.
Everything that you're going to need to be a saddle hunter, they have it. So if you want to start saddle hunting this year and get into the game like everyone else and really love hunting even more, go to Trophy Line, check it out, use the code TFC10 to save yourself 10% on that purchase.
We're big bow hunters. Sights, quivers, stabilizers, those kind of things are really important if you're going to have a deadly setup. And so we've tried a lot of different companies in the industry, and we've kind of figured out that we really like Redline gear the best. So we are shooting their torch sights this year.
It's a really cool sight. There's a lot of good micro adjustments you can make. You can customize a lot of the stuff on there. Really make it your own.
The chargeable USB rechargeable light is
really
sweet.
Cool.
And so we're huge fans of their stuff. We use them all the time. It's worth going to check them out. Check out Redline. Use the promo code TFC10 for 10% off your purchase, and let us know what you think. We love them. All right, welcome to another episode of the Fair Chase podcast. I've got Jake Belinda here with me today. Jake and us, our whole group, we've known each other for quite a while, actually, dating back to when you were working with the Untamed guys for a while there. So we're going to set up some time. We had set up some time today to talk trail cameras, but before we do, I do have to read some kind of cool announcement that we've got with Christensen Arms. So if you're gearing up for hunting season, you're going to want to listen up closely to what we've got here. Christensen's got an offer that basically can get you, in addition to a rifle, up to $750 a gear. So an amazing promotion. It's brought to you by Christensen Arms. If you don't know them, they created the first carbon fiber barrel back in 1995. So I was 7 years old when that happened, if I did my math right. And they've been making these world class rifles ever since. I've got my 300 ready to go for moose in under a week. So now through October 31, when you buy an eligible Christensen rifle, you can send their team a simple form with your original receipt. Once they verify it, they'll send you an electronic gift card for up to $750 to their store, which has things like accessories for the Christensen Arms stuff, and other brands like Loophole, Mystery Ranch, Half Face Blades, and even Uncharted Supply Company, which we've had Christian, their owner, on our podcast a bunch, and a bunch of other companies as well. So if you're interested, go to christensenarms.com, learn more, and take advantage of this incredible offer. All right, Jake, now that we got our the house cleaning, keeping stuff out of the way,
man.
Excited to have you on. We were messaging back and forth about doing a podcast together, talking about trail cameras. It's something that we've kind of talked about over the last couple weeks. And you do a bunch of it, so I figured to have you on. And before we even get into that, you were just telling me prior to the podcast that you just shot. I mean, you started the year off with an August buck in Tennessee.
Yeah, yeah. I'm actually on the way home from that. It was a 3-day hunt, kind of a spur of the moment trip, but I capitalized on the last evening. It can be tough if you don't have, that hunt. If you don't have, good weather. I mean,
Right.
August can be. I mean, it was brutally hot the first 2 days, so deer weren't moving until literally the last light. Um, and then last night it cooled off because it rained half the day and then stopped right around 3 o'clock. So I knew deer were going to be moving, and they were actually moving a little bit earlier. So
Yeah.
I capitalized on that.
It's huge. Yeah. The little bits of cold front whenever you can find them. Super, super helpful for getting on a buck. So, I mean, I'm excited for you to, I don't know, to show what you did. I know it's that you've teased it online.
Yeah, yeah. I took care of it last night. He's no giant, but I'm tickled with him with being velvet buck. I mean, you don't get very many chances to shoot a
No.
velvet deer, especially being a northern guy like me. And yourself. I mean, we don't. Our season, we're
Yeah.
not even close. So
Yeah, I know. It's always been like a dream, but yeah, it's just like not a common thing. So excited to see it. Congratulations on
yeah, I
that.
appreciate it. Um, so he's in
So
the truck, and I didn't get done until like 2 a.m. last night skinning him up.
that makes sense. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump into trail cameras. So, like you said, you're a northern guy. You're in PA.
Yep.
We're in Michigan. We've got hunting seasons that start around the same time. And one thing that we spend a lot of time with, and I know you do too, is trail cameras, right? Like setting
Yes.
them up, using them basically to zero in on a deer. So let's just dive into it. So how do you use trail cameras? I mean, this podcast will go out kind of the beginning of September. So what are you doing beginning of September with trail cameras to kind of capitalize and kind of maximize your success?
A big thing for me, I use trail cameras in like multiple different ways. I have kind of the large lump sum that I use for just like inventory, possibly deer I want to find. But I have 100 trail cameras basically.
100 out?
I had yeah. Well, right now I have 60 out, but I have another 40 that I'm going to put out in the next couple of days. Um, but
How do you even manage that many?
very, very carefully. I've left a few in the woods. That's actually what I'm going to do now. Pick some up that I left since last July.
Okay.
But
Dang.
I mean, there's multiple ways. But for September, coming into season, a big thing I like to do is I go in the woods from late July through August, and I actually use my binos. And I and that time of year to actually scout for acorn production.
Yeah.
So I'll go for morning runs or take the bike for a ride, and I'm looking for acorn producing trees because in the north we always get sometimes a late frost which kills our acorn production. But for September, I got my cameras basically already in the areas that I seen acorns when I was in there in either July or August. So I put them in there basically a month ahead of time, and they might not have any activity for a while, but as soon as September hits and those white oaks start dropping,
Yeah.
I want that like now inventory, just in case something that I'm in that area pops up and I can get in there with fresh data.
All right, we're going to take a pause here real quick and just thank a few more guys and companies that help make this show possible. First up is Vortex. We can't say it enough. We love their glass. We love their binoculars, spotting scopes, rangefinders, their apparel. James is rocking a nice little hoodie here. They make awesome stuff. And if you guys are looking to make a purchase at Vortex, go over to their website and use the code TFC20 to save yourself 20% on the next purchase. That's a big, good discount. Use it. Head over there and get something.
A bow makes a man.
Does
and
it?
Yeah, that's what I was told. And we're big fans of prime bows. Shooting it for years, Michigan-based company. We're shooting their latest Revix series of bows. Mine's that 36 long boy.
I'll generally take a few shots right back here and just
Yeah, we're huge fans. Smooth, great balance. Just go check them out. There's tons of technology. One of my favorite things that they have is their grip.
Hmm.
Space age
Space
technology
age.
keeps your hand warm even when it's cold. Highly recommend. Go check out Prime Archery. Finally, Lathrop and Sons boots. Your feet kill animals. Like the more you walk, the more chances you have at getting that big buck, that big elk, moose, whatever it is. Lathrop and Sons have been kind of our go-to boot of choice for a while now. We've put in a lot of miles, taken them all over the place. There's no leaking. It's comfortable. Stephen and James there they're like foot like
They're
scientists.
geniuses. I got messed up feet, and they basically will, you take an imprint of your foot. They'll look at it, look at your arch, how wide it is, how narrow, how long, and they literally build the boot around your foot. So you're not going to a box store and picking up something that you hope is going to fit your boot. These things actually are tailor-made to your foot. So they're super comfortable. Mine, I could walk all day in them. So if you're looking to
And
get
you
a boot,
have.
if you're looking for a boot that's made for you and not somebody else, go check out Lathrop and Sons.
Yeah, the acorns are huge. I mean, like, it's funny because you'll put a trail camera out all summer and you'll get certain deer doing certain things going past it. But once September hits or mid-September or what,
Yep.
depending on where you live, all of a sudden everything like movement is totally different. Or maybe where a camera was kind of cold, heats up real
Oh
fast,
yeah.
and so we'll do the same thing. It's like I've got cameras out right now that will pick up the occasional like couple does, but I know in the next maybe 2 weeks, all of a sudden, all the bachelor groups will start rolling through. They'll go hard horned. Last year I even got, I had my camera set on like burst mode or whatever,
Yep.
and I got like a bunch of pictures of a buck rubbing, like literally right in front of the camera. It's like I know that's going to happen every
Yep.
year. So yeah,
Yeah, I do that too on a couple spots. I have like this historical little area that bucks go and rub. Like I always find rubs like begun by October 1st on this small
yeah,
little flat that's a bunch of saplings. So I actually put a camera there this year just to see what comes through. It's kind of like a signpost. It's on the edge of this clear cut and the big hardwoods. So I think it's something that a lot of deer transition through that kind of just like looking who's around, sizing each other up. Cause I mean, they got new headgear for the year. They got to
yeah.
go through that pecking order early in the season.
I was my thing lately has been I hop on an e-bike with some binoculars and I like cruise around in just glass fields,
Yep.
which works really well because you're real quiet. And like now I've had it where I almost hit a flock of turkeys coming around a corner. They couldn't hear me. And just under a month ago, I almost hit two coyotes.
Oh, wow.
I come around like this dirt road and like they're right in front of me and I'm on a bike and it looked like I caught them doing something they shouldn't have been doing. They're like,
Oh, yeah.
take off. But I love the bike. But what I saw last week were bucks in velvet sparring, which is hilarious, and it had to be painful a little bit for them
Oh, yeah.
because they're like, I mean, they start kicking a little bit, and all of a sudden they're kind of just tickling the antlers a little
Yeah.
bit, which is really good to see.
They're testing out, basically there's bucks that just shed this week. I seen a couple people post about, and a
Yeah,
friend of mine actually seen a rub already. So I think that it's a little bit earlier this year, and they're just kind of finding out what's going on with their headgear. If it's kind of like ripe, so to speak, getting loose and
yeah.
getting ready to fall off.
Are you cell cam man? Are you going to pull cards every time? What's your thing for
I am
that?
probably 50-50, if not 60-40, more heavily on the traditional side. Um, Specifically being because I put a lot of cameras out in areas that don't even have cell coverage. That's something that
Right.
a lot of the big woods in Pennsylvania, the hill countries in Ohio, even down through Kentucky. I mean, you're not yet, and even where you came with Untamed in West Virginia, you don't have cell coverage. That
No.
I mean, so it's kind of pointless to even have them. It is what it is. I mean, you got to use what you got, and but I like the
Yeah.
traditionals. I have had some success with some cheaper models, and then it cuts the costs. I mean, those plans for cell cams aren't really cheap.
They're not. Like there's the spy points like free for 100 photos, and then one's like, oh, you get 600 for $15
Yeah.
or whatever. And it's like, man, every year it's a couple $100 just for having like 6 trail
Well,
cameras
that's
that are
just
saw
it with
cams.
that 100 photos. Like I've utilized that with some wild games before last year,
Yeah.
and it was like free 250 photos. But the problem was you get a couple wind pictures at night, like in a storm, and
Yeah.
there goes your 250, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
that's happened to me
Yep.
multiple times. You put it on a scrape, and the storm comes through, and the licking branches is flying all over the place, and now you're um, now you got to buy the next upgrade.
Yeah,
So
it happens, dude. That happens literally every year. I'm like, oh no, this is the year. It's 100 is going to be fine for this spot, and it's like, or like, a squirrel goes in front of it or something. Like it's like you can't even see the squirrel,
yep,
and it all of a sudden there goes 25 pictures of it just rooting around
yep.
below it. So you're so when you turn yours on, you got I'm sure you got the like the highest speed. You do bursts of pictures, or do videos, or how do you set yours up?
For scrapes, I try to do video. To be honest with you, because
Yeah,
I like to learn, especially for scrapes and big mature deer. I like to learn what they're doing coming into a scrape. Most deer don't walk down a path, hit a scrape, and continue down that exact same path. Some deer
yeah,
circle downwind, come into scrapes differently, and that's kind of especially on primary. And I generally only set cameras early on primary scrapes that are used all year long that have a pretty significant divot. It's got a big licking branch.
right.
Things that are hit year. It's that perennial scrape that's hit year in and year out. I like it on video so I can see what's going on. Is it windy? Like there's multiple things you can learn off a video that you can on a photo.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And plus, it's just cooler.
Yeah.
It's cooler to watch it. You get like cool stuff that
Oh
shows
yeah.
up. Not even always deer. It's like you'll see, I don't know, cool stuff, a coyote, carrying
Yep.
something past or whatever, which is
I
fun. Bears, hopefully.
bobcats. I've gotten some cool videos of bobcats. Like one was carrying a squirrel. Like it,
Yeah.
that stuff you don't see very often. Or on a photo, you might have just got it quickly, like a blurry picture, and you knew it was a bobcat, but you didn't know what was going on.
Right. Yeah. You kind of miss that like those
Yeah.
details that make it kind of
Um,
exciting. Um, so I'm guessing you've got, so you got, what did you say, 60 cameras out right
yes.
now? What's your what's your steal rate? Like how many of those get stolen a year?
Oh, I average 8 to 10 a year that gets stolen or broken. I've had people
Okay.
shoot them before. Um, yeah, that's happened. I've had people turn them upside down. All the whole nine. Bears. There's a lot of bears where I'm at. You like hunting bears, but
Yeah.
I I despise bears. It's for
Because they do jack up
oh
a trail
yeah,
camera.
real bad. But I what I have done to alleviate that this past year. A friend of mine and I came up with a little homemade locking mechanism because the Python cables with the amount I run, that would be way too expensive, way too quick. And
Exactly.
frankly,
Yep.
I did it for 15 cameras before, and I lost the keys, and then basically had to cut them all
Yeah.
off.
You got to get the wire
Yeah,
cutters.
so
Yeah.
I'm not doing that again. So I made a system. I'm meaning to put a video up here very shortly, actually, because I get a lot of questions about it. It only cost me about $2.25 to 250 per lock to lock a camera on a tree, and that had definitely is. It's not bulletproof, where people can still steal it if they really want it,
Sure.
but it's going to make you work extremely hard to take that camera.
Ooh, yeah, I'll watch that for sure. I never lock them.
Yeah, it's
I just don't. I don't have a lot out. Like I have 6 out, 7 out. And I have more that
I
haven't come
hide
out
them.
yet, but
To alleviate that, I hide them a little bit better. I put them on the ground or higher in a tree or hide them with some brush. I mean, there's some things you can do to really alleviate that, especially the public ground guys. Um, what
oh yeah.
when I get most of them stolen is that later November period when bear season comes in and gangs of guys and camps are driving deer. and then deer season comes, and there's just a whole fluctuate of different people in the woods. That's so. I mean, I lose about $1,000 in trail cameras a year, so it's unfortunate, but um, it is what it is.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. Yeah, so you go low. You put them low. I just started doing that, like put them lower on the
Yeah,
ground.
yeah.
Actually, how is that
It
working
does
for you?
great if you like, especially if you find some topography, those big trails that are, let's say, around a big rock face, and
Yeah.
you can't put it high to angle down. I actually put it on the ground, almost level, um, with the deer.
No, you're good. So, where
Okay.
you cut out was the trail camera's like your buddy of yours, and then I missed it.
Yes. Okay. So a buddy of mine actually uh, taught me how to do it a little bit. Johnny Stewart. You've probably
Yeah.
seen him on Instagram. He posts pictures of bucks on trail cameras all the time. Um, he's the one that got me into putting them on the ground and hide them a little bit different, because they're specific trails that you're looking for bucks on specifically, especially, come
Yeah.
October. Um, you're below doe bedding groups or whatever, and just I found a lot of these bigger deer that I'm chasing are in the little bit more rugged terrain. It's not easy living. That easy living place was where everybody goes, or that's where
Right.
the doe groups go to live, and they want to be big bucks like to be kind of off on their own. So that's kind of where I learned to put cameras on the ground and face them maybe uphill on a steep incline on a bench or a
Yeah.
trail.
Yeah, I've liked it too. I just had it. This is my first time this year doing it. I'm out there and I'm like, man, I got no spot to put it, but it's kind of on a hill and no one will ever look here, and it's low, and you can
Yeah,
almost build like a ground blind around it. So it's just like part of it's
yeah,
sticking out, which
yep,
is
yep. I do that. I do that a lot for scrapes that I don't want the branches
yeah,
like in it, because I don't that it might be a big oak branch that has a big scrape, but you don't want to get that branch blowing all the time. So I just put
yeah,
it on the ground,
yep.
real low.
That's so
Um,
sweet.
and that you just got to get creative if you really want to get the intel in the exact spot you want. You just got to get a little creative and make it work. I take a little machete with me, a little, and swing it around, or break a stick off and break all the brush down. Just make it as you know as dummy proof
Yeah.
as you can, where you're not going to
Well,
get
and I
wind
like that too.
pictures.
It's just because you when you think of trail cameras, you think of someone putting it about a little higher than waist height on a tree. Like there are tons of ways to do it. Don't like be so limited by what you've seen other people do or whatever. It's like just be creative, and I feel like you'll have a better
Yep.
time out there. You'll get a lot better pictures too.
Yeah, the big thing that I see a lot because of social media is a lot of guys in the Midwest, they're sticking them
Yeah.
on a post with a corn pile out in the middle of a field. Like, I don't have that
Same.
chance or
Right.
opportunity to do that. So and nor 90% of guys have the food plot where they stick a post in the ground and can let
Yeah.
it alone. Most people, if they do have a permission farm, it's a farm ground where they can't mess with crops. They can't, they try to leave the farmer
Yeah.
stuff alone. So you're not going to be able to stick a post in the ground right in the middle of his crops, like in his bean field, to
Exactly.
get pictures. Like he's going to get mad if you do that, because he's going to have to move it
Yeah.
for the tractor.
No, I have the same thing, and then
So
plus where I am, I mean, you not really can't really bait, and like I don't know,
yeah,
you're just not gonna see. You can see a lot of that stuff. You can get a lot of information on maybe a pile of bait or whatever, depending where you are, just by glassing into it, or just knowing that you put bait down, deer will show up. Like, you know what I mean?
yeah.
But you probably shouldn't hunt there.
Uh, Yeah, I mean, there's states that you're allowed. Like, I've noticed it creates really lazy
Yeah.
hunters, in my opinion, where you can bait, and it's because people think that you can just go out there. Here's a spot the deer might cross. Throw a big pile of corn out, spread it out, and put a camera on it, and you're gonna know everything
Right.
that's around there. And that is not the case at all.
Well, we've even
Deer,
had guys on that
you
have
know,
been like, man, I'll put a trail camera in the front of a tree and the back of a tree. because he's like, man, in which I don't because I don't have enough cameras, but like I get it because his point was deer will not always, they'll sometimes either know that there's a trail camera there and they do figure that out sometimes and they'll just go around it, or just
Yes.
like sometimes deer go behind it, and so you're only getting like a snippet. And no matter what with a trail camera, it's always good to keep that in mind. Just because you've got a trail camera here and it's not getting
Yep.
some, is or isn't getting something, that's not always telling you like the 360-degree picture of what's going on in that spot.
Yes. Yeah, and that's I actually had that exact scenario kind of play out this year. Just this past week, whenever I was checking this, so there's 3 trails that I I didn't know which camera to put it on. Um, like what I basically made a mock scrape on the one. I just picked one that I thought
Yeah.
was the best. But if I was off, if I picked there was 3 that converge into one through this edge of this clear cut, and you could be missing a buck might go on just a
Yeah.
singular trail and completely miss, and you think you're like, oh, he's not even here. You check it after a month and you're like, well, I guess he's not here at all, yet you missed him by 30 yards and he's
Yeah,
there
exactly.
every other day.
Yeah.
It's part of it. It's a tool that I use and utilize to help keep eyes in the woods when I'm not there, and then also it's something that I use as confirmation on what I've found for the year
Yeah,
scouting.
I would totally agree with that. It's like, it shouldn't be your only tool. It doesn't replace knowing the woods.
No,
It doesn't replace any of it, but it can be part
nope,
of your system to figuring out how deer do
yep,
it, especially if you're running trail cameras year over year in certain areas. You get a really great
yep.
picture of what goes on in the woods throughout the year. Um,
Oh yeah.
all right, Jake. So I've got 3 scenarios I'm going to walk you through, and I'm just going to see what would Jake do. So,
Okay. Yep.
all right, you go out, you got permission to hunt a small 10-acre plot. All right, so it's a skinny plot. It's got a swamp. It's just got a just real skinny spot between two pieces of private land. You're all excited because you know bucks will move through there. It's one of those little small spots people overlook, and you're excited for it. So you get out there, and definitely somebody on the neighboring property has got cameras on that piece of ground, right? So these people will show up once a year. You don't see them, you see them maybe during gun season or bow season a couple times, but you go out there
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, dang it, they're putting trail cameras out. Do you mess with? Do you turn off their camera? Do you turn it around? Do you do anything to it, or do you leave it? It's not your property, but you have permission. You know they don't. What's your move?
First I would probably ask the landowner if anybody else has like maybe a neighbor, or maybe I've ran in situations where it was like, oh yeah, I forgot, that was my nephew, he left it back there last
Yep.
year, he forgot about it, let me
Yep.
tell him to go get it. So that would be the first step. The second step is if basically I've put notes on them before, just like, hey, can you please remove this, you don't have access to this piece of ground, can you please remove it? But I leave most trail cameras alone because I basically have gone into this scenario. My mindset is, okay, let's say there's an 8, 9, 10-year-old kid for his birthday. His grandfather
Yeah.
bought him a trail
Yeah.
camera. Okay, and that's their thing. They're going out into the woods to put a camera up to look what deer in the woods for deer season. That's kind of like grandpa and the
Yeah.
kid running around together. That's like their little Sunday activity. What happens if you're the guy that
You'd be a
takes it,
jerk, man.
and that's what you just don't know. So that has gone through my head so much that I'm like, I don't want to ruin maybe some kid's day, that it might sour taste in his mouth for the rest of his life about it, and then turn him into somebody that's gonna go steal cameras because his got stolen in the
Yeah.
first place.
No,
So that's
that's a good approach. I asked because I was confronted with this year, and like I went back and forth, and I came up behind it, so yeah, I wasn't on it. I'm like, this is not supposed to be here. Ended up leaving it. Definitely gonna talk to the neighbor when I catch him, but that was one. Is like, man, I could just turn it off. I could just set it to the base of the
yeah,
tree. I wouldn't break it, but like let them know that you definitely aren't supposed to be here. All right, so that's one. All right, so 2,
yes,
You are heading out on public land, and you're heading out. You just it's not your spot, not a spot you're headed to, but you see a pretty cool spot for a trail camera, maybe a good run or whatever. Some reason to make you think this might be a decent spot. And there's a trail camera there. Do you check that guy's trail camera?
Again,
No.
no. And the reason being is because you don't know basically what. So let me put this scenario for you. I have seen the Pennsylvania Game Commission and other DCNR put cameras out for inventory of people or deer. They're doing studies. Penn State did a study last year where they were looking for how many
Right.
songbirds they could hear in the audio. Like they weren't even
Right.
for deer; they were for songbirds audio. So I leave them alone.
Smart.
If I walk by them and see them, I'll give like a thumbs
Yeah,
up
I
or
always give the
something. But
thumbs up, give the wave.
um, yeah,
I'll occasionally get pictures from people who follow us. They're like, "Hey, saw you on my trail camera," and like they'll send a picture of me, like giving the wave, which is kind of unsettling,
yeah,
But all right, so that's good.
how it is. Yeah.
All right. So here's one more. You have a sweet spot, right? It's a new spot you haven't been to, and you get all. I mean, it's a hike to get in there. It's a thing, right? But it's sweet. Like you've seen bucks maybe moving in there or whatever. If reasonably, this is a good spot. You get there, and there's a trail camera there already. Do you put yours there as well, or do you just say this guy put the camera there first? He wins. I'm moving out.
I have put cameras where other
Yeah.
cameras are at.
How do you sleep
Basically,
at night?
pretty well. And this I had this talk actually with my best friend not too long ago. He's been putting a camera in the same spot for 3 or 4 years, and that's like his historical spot that he always put a camera because it tells him he's learned it because he has a set that he sits a couple hundred yards away that he knows how the deer
Yeah.
move from being there so much. And he got there this year and there was a camera in that exact spot. And he's like, I'm just putting it on the next tree over and leaving the guy be because I've seen guys leave trail cameras for now. That's the only time I do check them. I've seen cameras that have been sitting in the same spot for 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
That you're
Did he
like,
forget it?
this is forgot. Yeah, I've opened it up and there's spiders all through it. The batteries are corroded and it's just been sitting there for forever. So it's like, well, good thing I actually did check it after so long because it's just worthless.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
so
we
that's
just had
kinda,
one. I just did this for helping my brother put out trail cameras, and he had a spot, his secret honey hole, he calls it, and which is so gross. I don't, and he gets out there. He's got this camera's sitting there. I'm like, man, the camera's there. What do you want to do? It's your call. I'm like, I'd put it here. I'd probably hide my camera better than this guy. You throw it up. I like to find sometimes even like a clump of trees up high, and then you can hide the strap behind it, and it's just hard to see. So we threw it up, and I didn't feel one bit bad about that. Because like trail cameras, like it's the Wild West out there. It's like if you got one, I'm not going to steal it, but that doesn't mean no one can put a trail camera out, and then
exactly.
if that is the case, well, it's like how far away do I need to put it to make it okay? And it's like, man, then. No, there's no. I would agree with every single one of your answers here. So
it's one of those things like it's the gray area of sportsmen. I just because I've put cameras in places I know I'm only going to get nighttime pictures, but that data, the reason I'm looking for maybe a specific Big Ten point that is he coming down here at night. Like I'm putting a piece to a puzzle together, and I'm like, I need a camera here to tell me if he's coming to this food source or this big community scrape or whatever, and I just need that data to kind of justify not hunting an area as much as I need to be somewhere.
Exactly.
So if I need it there, I need it there to kind of put my puzzle
Yeah.
piece together.
No, I agree with that. You mentioned earlier mock scrapes. You do a lot of mock scraping.
I
Yeah.
do. I do a lot of mock
Do you pee
scrapes.
in it too, or do you just throw the stuff out, or both, or what's your?
So I've tried everything. Um, I don't make any scrapes myself unless it's in a spot that there looks like there already could be
Yeah.
one. And then I use vines a lot, like
Yeah.
grapevines and zip
Yep.
ties. That's about the only type of mock scrape I make. Otherwise, I am basically just opening up pre-existing perennial scrapes, or a hub system.
Yeah.
That is kind of my take on it. I'll just reopen it up early, like I did this. I've done 5 this past week, like last week. Threw a camera on it. I knew I wasn't going to be back until mid-October. So let's see what comes through in September, you know, and vice versa. So it's one of those things that it's all variable. I mock scrapes, kind of a vague
Yeah. It can
term.
be so
I
much.
just re I just open up big perennial scrapes, and then I might make a scrape myself with a
Yeah.
vine. That's basically all I'll do.
I've been I made 3 or 4 from basically a spot where I think a scrape should be or could be,
Hmm.
and I just made up my own this year. I don't usually do that, and usually I'll find one or I'll find a rub or just a place
Yeah.
where I think I know they move through or whatever. But this year I'm like, no, I'm taking it. I scrape it up, make a mock scrape. I crack the limb down so there's little something from the
Yep.
rub their face on. I pee in it and I put the
Oh yeah.
juice in it because I figure my pee will eventually become ammonia smelling, which is kind of whatever. And then the fake stuff I put down will always smell like a fresh one. So when a deer comes, in my opinion, then it's like, oh, there's been at least two bucks here. You know,
Yeah.
it seems like it's worked
Um.
so far. I mean, every time I do
Yeah.
it, bucks show up with like. Usually, it's like I'll do it, and within a few hours, a young buck shows up for whatever reason.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of it. How community scrapes kind of start is that a high traffic area that one buck might have made something, and then it's just snowball effect. If you see a doe um, making a scrape,
Yeah,
like does actually make scrapes. I don't know if a lot of people know that. That is going to be your best inventory scrape of the year.
yeah,
So long, a little backtrack on data here. Like, so a doe group, there's always like the queen doe, like the big, most mature doe. She is going to be bred probably first by the most mature buck. It's kind of like the king and queen mentality. So October, like how you've probably seen the chart of breeding season, like you've seen like uh, where October like 13th, you're like, what doe is being bred in October 13th? Well, it's that doe that
yeah.
is the first one to come into cycle, but only the biggest, most mature buck is going to breed her. But she's going to make a scrape and pee in it to tell that she's ready because she's the very first one. And if you can find that, you are going to have a very, very hot scrape that is going to turn into a community scrape because it's the first thing that's the gestation cycle of the year.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great tip. Hot tip.
Yeah, and actually, the last I've read this is an old article that was like a hand note. This guy basically said that 28 days, so the 29th day after that she does that, what if that buck, like let's say you're after like 150-inch
Yeah,
tempo, and he finds that scrape, that like you find it, put a camera on it, and he shows up that night on that
yeah.
scrape. Well, if he doesn't find her within that period of time that she's ready, he will circle back 29 days to the exact day, 29 days later, to check that scrape again to see if she came back into cycle.
Really?
Yes. So it's pretty interesting. So it's like this. I learned it from a guy in the 70s and 80s that basically took. He had a big deer farm property and just observed deer every single day. and it was a research article, and he just researched and watched and observed, and to the day, because they have a 28-day gestation period that they'll recycle back through.
Yeah.
On the 29th day, basically when she would be ready again, that deer comes back to the exact same spot.
That's crazy. That's a hot tip. For
Yeah,
everybody listening, write that down. That's the that age-old wisdom,
if you can find that, the hardest part is finding that, but if you can, I mean, that is like the bread and butter, the best possible thing you can probably find on a scrape.
Fantastic. Well, Jake, we're coming up on time here. I got to let you get back home. You got more hunting to do, and you got to get ready for it.
Yeah, the West is calling soon.
Right. Where you headed?
We're going on a starting in. I got to do some film projects up in North Dakota and then Montana, but then I'm hunting in Colorado and Wyoming the first, through September. So
I'm looking for another bull, man. Last time I saw you, you had a bull in the truck, so I'm hoping for something similar.
I'm gonna try. I'm definitely gonna try. It's itching.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on. For people who are listening, you guys check Jake out. First of all, you got to see whatever he shot, this velveted deer. So he'll be posting about that soon. But if you want to follow along, Jake, where can people check you out?
Yeah, so just Jake Belinda and the Void Hunt on Instagram and the Void Hunt on YouTube.
Yeah.
Bunch of episodes coming out. One here at the end of the week, and then hopefully every week or two, another one coming.
Giddy up. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming on.